Morning, everybody. Happy Monday, June 1st. So we're starting into our last 2.5, 3 weeks of this semester, and we got this last unit to finish up. So last week I had you working on area and perimeter of common shapes and using the Pythagorean theorem on right angled triangles. So this video I'm going to post right now is going to go over that work that you're supposed to do last week, kind of go over some of the answers and explain to you how the questions should have been done if you had any problems. So give this video a watch, and as always, if you watch it and you're still kind of confused, please reach out and we can talk about it. No problem at all doing that for you. That's why I'm here. Um, in this geometry and measurement unit, it's mainly just about using the equations properly and knowing what equation to use. And you're going to always be able to use a list of all the equations in front of you whenever you do work in this unit. So you won't have to memorize any of these equations, but just kind of know how to use them. And we're going to go through that right now. So I'm going to do some examples with you from the work that was assigned last week. We're going to start with area and perimeter. The first question, how'd you determine the perimeter and area of each figure? So there's a rectangle, a circle, and a triangle. And we're going to go through that right now. So for the rectangle, perimeter is the distance around a shape. So side plus side plus side plus side. As we know from our equation sheet that's attached right here, all the equations on it, right? We know that area of a rectangle is length times width. So the question tells us the lengths of the rectangle are 9 meters by 5 meters. So we know that this length is 9, this length is 9, this length is 5, this length is 5. So all we got to do for perimeter is add those up. 9 plus 9 plus 5 plus 5. Perimeter equals 28 meters. Area, pretty simple as well. Area is just length times width. What's our length? 9. What's our width? 5. 9 times 5, area is 45 meters squared. It's always squared for area, if you remember that from grade school. Not that important. If you forgot, I wouldn't probably take marks off, but it is always squared for area. All right? Number 1A, done, simple. 2 is a circle. A little more complicated because you have to use the coefficient of pi. That's just going to be a button on your calculator, or 3.14 if you want to simplify it, right? So perimeter or circumference, which is the perimeter of a circle, is 2 pi r. R is radius. Radius is how far it is from the middle of the circle to the outside. Diameter is how far across the whole circle it is. So radius is half the length of the diameter, in case you don't remember that from grade school. So right here shows the radius being 8 centimeters. So the diameter would be 16 centimeters, but we don't need to know that for what we're doing. Just kind of wanted to review that. So an 8 centimeter radius. So all I'm going to do is put that into my equation of 2 pi r. So circumference equals 2 pi r, or 2 pi times 8, because our radius is 8. And if you do that math in your calculator, 50.27 centimeters. Area, that's pi r squared. So we're going to square 8. 8 times 8, that's 64. 64 times pi is 201.1 centimeters squared. So simple, as long as you know how to use the equations and what equations to use, right? It's important when finding area that you square the number first and then times by pi. So don't do pi times 8 and then square that answer. You want to square 8 and then times it by pi. That's the only kind of tricky part, but pretty straightforward there. And lastly, we have a triangle. Perimeter is just side plus side plus side. The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, as you see from our equation sheet right here. 1/2 base times height, right? So you just got to take the equation from your sheet and start plugging some numbers in. So we know our dimensions are 10, 24, and 26 from our diagram. Add those all together. 60 centimeters is your area, is the perimeter of that triangle. Area, 1/2 base times height. Our base is 10 and our height is 24. This is kind of a tricky one because the way they have the triangle set, but it's a right angle triangle. So we know this is how high it goes. This is the base. So 10 times 24, that's what that question would be. 10 times 24, that's 240. We get half of that, half of 240. 120 centimeters squared is the area of that triangle. Number 2 kind of takes that and makes it a little harder using different shapes. So we use a parallelogram for this example. For perimeter, we're still just going to add the lengths of all 4 outer sides. So if we do that, 8 plus 5 plus 5 plus 8, that's 36 centimeters squared, right? 8 plus 5 plus 8 plus 5. Simple enough. For area, we're going to do just base times height. How do I know that? Well, it's on my equation sheet. Area of a parallelogram is base times height. Simple enough, right? So we're going to plug in our numbers. What's our base? What's our height? Well, our base is 8 and our height is 3. We get that from the diagram, right? Base 8, height 3. Simple enough. Put the numbers in, multiply them by each other. 24 centimeters squared is the area of that parallelogram. Probably the most trickiest shape is the trapezoid. Perimeter, just add all 4 edges of the outside, same as always. 15 plus 13 plus 24 plus 10, 62 centimeters. That's our perimeter of the trapezoid. The area is 1/2 a plus b times h. So kind of complicated, but just follow what's in the chart, right? Trapezoid, a plus b times h. So if you look at this, a is the top line, b is the bottom line, h is what goes up. So in our question, a is 10, b is 24, and h is 12. We're going to plug those numbers in. 10 plus 24 times 12, that's 34 times 12, 408. Take half of that, 204 centimeters squared. That would be the area. Pretty simple. This last one, we have a semicircle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same things, our equations we did for a full circle, just divide our answer by 2 because it's only half a circle, right? So perimeter, 2 pi r, then we're going to divide that by 2 because it's a semicircle. Area is pi r squared. We're going to divide that by 2 because it's a semicircle. Put in the numbers. Radius is 5, so 2 pi times 5. Do the math. Get this. Divide it by 2. 15.71 centimeters. Same deal for this. Put 5 in for r. Do the math. Pi times 25 divided by 2. Your answer would be 39.27 centimeters squared. So this is how you find area and perimeter of simple shapes. Just look at the equation that you need to use on your sheet, plug in the numbers accordingly, do the math in your calculator, and that's it. All right, any questions about that, let me know. Then there was a couple more practical questions. I don't have time to go over all of them, but I'll go over a couple. So let's do, just skip the sail. That was pretty easy, right? Just area of a triangle, so it's base 3.5 times height 1.5, then divide that answer by 2. That's what you got to do to find the area of that. As long as how do I know that? Right here. 1/2 base times height, right? Or base times height divided by 2. Let's look at the equation sheets. Let's do this one. It's a little tricky. They're elliptic circles. Rianne is making the circles with the Olympic symbol, that plastic tubing. Each circle is a radius of 75 centimeters. How much tubing does she need? So what's that question asking us? It's asking us the perimeter, right? Because how much tubing will she need to make a circle around? So we need to know how far around one circle is, and then times that answer by 5 because we have 5 total circles. So that's what I did. Circumference is 2 pi r, right? We just did that. What's r? Well, r is 75. It told us that. Radius of 75, right? So we just put that in the equation, do the math. Circumference is 471.24 centimeters per ring. There's 5 rings. Multiply that by 5. Your total perimeter is 2,356.2 centimeters. So that's how much tubing you will need. If you wanted, you can simplify that to meters. So it'll be, divide that by 100, 235.62 meters. Whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. And then let's go over one more. Number 8, let's do 8. Rosa has 24 meters of fencing to make a square pen for her dog. How long is each side of the pen? Sketch the pen, justify your answer. I didn't sketch it, but a square, we know a square is the same length on all 4 sides. So we just got to do a little algebra. perimeter is side plus side plus side plus side, or if all four sides are the same length, we're just timesing the side length by 4 for a square, right? We know that our perimeter is 24 meters, so 24 equals side length times 4. Following our algebra skills we just practiced, we divide both sides by 4. The times 4 and the divided by 4 cancel out. We're left with the side length equals 24 divided by 4, or 6 meters. So if we have a pen of 24 meters and it's a square, then each side length is 6 meters. That's what we just found out. Any questions about this, let me know. I got to move on to Pythagorean theorem before my video gets cut out. All right. Second thing to do is Pythagorean theorem, which is only used, as the video said, in a right angle triangle, or triangles that have that little staircase logo in the bottom there, right? That means it's a 90-degree angle. It's a right triangle. The equation is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then you just got to plug in the numbers. C squared is always your hypotenuse, or the side across from the 90-degree angle. The longest side is your hypotenuse. That's always C. This one A, this one B, that doesn't matter, but this has to be C always. All right? Then we plug in the numbers. So let's say this is A and this is B. 4 squared plus 3 squared equals C squared. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 times 3 is 9. 16 plus 9 equals C squared. 25 equals C squared. And then following our algebra rules, we have to get C by itself. Why is it not by itself right now? Well, it's being squared. What's the opposite of squaring something? If you don't know, it's square rooting something. So we're going to square root both sides to get C by itself. So square root of C squared, square root of 25. The squared and the square root cancel out, and we're left with just C. And then square root of 25 equals 5. Boom. So if this is 4 and this is 3, then this length is 5. So we just figured out. I'm going to skip this one because it's the same thing we just did. No difference at all, just using different numbers. Let's do this one. We have this length is 5, and this time it gives us the length of C, or our hypotenuse is 13. It tells us that. So we have to do some rearranging in our equation. So let's call this A, 5. We'll call this unknown length B, and this one is always going to be C, right? The longest side, across from the right angle. So let's solve in some numbers. 5 squared instead of A squared. We're leaving B squared because we don't know how long it is. And then equals 13 squared, right? 5 times 5 is 25, plus B squared equals 13 times 13 is 169. Why isn't B squared by itself? Well, it's being added to 25. Following algebra, just subtract 25 from both sides to get rid of it. B squared equals 169 minus 25, or 144. Now B is not by itself because it's being squared. We do the opposite, or square root it. If we square root both sides, the square on the B and the square root cancel out, and we're left with just B. And then the square root of 144 is 12. So if this side is 5 and this side is 13, then this side is 12, right? So when you use the Pythagorean theorem, sometimes you're going to have to rearrange the equation, and we're just going to use our algebra rules that we just learned to do that, all right? Are these triangles right triangles? Well, all you got to do to help to figure that out is plug the numbers into the equation and see if the left side equals the right side. So for this example, 8 squared plus 15 squared equals 17 squared. 64 plus 225 equals 289. I just squared all the numbers, right? 289 equals 289. If you add these up, it's 289. So left side equals right side. Yes, it is a right angle triangle. In this example, when you do that math, the left side is 160 and the right side is 169. They don't equal, so no, it is not a right angle triangle. For this question, it says foot of ladder is 2.5 meters from the base of a building. The ladder reaches 5.1 meters up, so I kind of drew it so you can see it, right? Reaches 2.5 from the base of the building, goes up 5.1. So it's asking you just to find the hypotenuse right here, which you know how to do. Just follow the steps of the equation. 5.1 squared plus 2.5 squared equals C squared. Do the math. Square root both sides, get rid of the squared. C equals 5.68. You could leave it as square root of 32.26 if you want. That answer will also be right. But if you want to actually simplify it out, that's good as well. My video is going to cut out, so if you have any questions, please reach out to me and I'll post new work today, alright? Thanks.